So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Jessica Crane and I'm a business coach for salon owners, and I help salon owners to increase profit and reach the next level in their business. So today I wanted to host this virtual roundtable to discuss the business model of employed versus self-employed. The reason I wanted to host this is because when we have clients come and work with us, 99% of the time, if they have a form of self-employed model, it's not profitable. So they very quickly find out that this self-employed structure, the way they've financially structured it, is not profitable. So today I want to focus on three main areas really. The financial side of it being profitable for your business, the legal side with the new IR35 and making sure that the way that you are actually conducting your business is actually that they are self-employed and not employed. And then also talking about the brand control, what kind of control you have over your business as well. Okay, so first of all, I want to come to Natalie. Natalie can kind of tell her story a little bit, but we had to change half of her team from self-employed to employed, which she can dive into a little bit more about that. And hopefully that's going to help other people who are in that same position make that transition as well. And then we're going to come to Lisa, who is a client. She's a salon owner and she's also an accountancy background. And Lisa is going to help spread some light onto the legality side for us. And then Collette, we're going to come over to you because I know this is also a topic that you're quite passionate about too. So I'm going to make sure Natalie is unmuted. So Natalie, do you want to introduce yourself and tell us about your story of taking your team from half of them being self-employed to employed?
So just a bit of my background. I currently have 2 salons, and as Jessica said, across those 2 salons, it was kind of a 50-50 share. So I had 50% of my staff were self-employed, and the other 50% were employed. And obviously kind of like we've all heard the mutterings of everything that's coming up with IR35 and everything, and I was just being advised by my accountants non-stop basically that we needed to change everybody over to employed. So that's what we did. Do you want me to just carry on, Jessica? Or?
Yeah, go for it. Tell us a little bit about why, what happened, the numbers.
Yeah, so when I first started with Jessica, obviously one of the first tasks was to delve right into the numbers, and kind of it was very clear within about half a day of working alongside Jessica that the self-employed, from a business point of view, we weren't taking well anything. They were taking all of the profit basically. It was really messy as well. Lots of people were on different percentages, and we just needed to streamline everything really, and make the business profitable, obviously. It was a huge mindset thing for me, and a confidence thing as well. When I was kind of like presenting back to the team as to why we were doing it, obviously I think Lisa's going to come on to this later, but legally everyone is going to have to do it sooner rather than later. But obviously kind of what you come up against in this industry is, you know, if you're a salon owner, they just think that you're trying to take more from them. Whereas obviously with the employment side of things, you're giving them huge job security, and everything that comes, the perks that come with employment as well. So as well as kind of like for me personally with the mindset and the confidence side of things, when we were presenting it back to the teams, I think being brutally honest, kind of like I wasn't aware myself of all of the kind of tax and financial implications that it was going to have on us. So we've now converted everybody over within the last year and a half. All of our staff are employed, and I'd probably say it's actually taken us that year and a half to kind of really come out of it on the other side financially, just because I was a little bit blinkered when it came to kind of like the PAYE contributions. Obviously, if you're VAT registered as well, that has a huge implication on you. All of the holiday pay, pensions, everything that comes with employing people, the joys. But yes, so that's kind of my story when it comes to employing people.
So, Natalie, that transition is quite scary for a lot of people. Like a lot of our clients, just like you, a lot of people in the industry have probably noticed that it's not profitable, but making that change, approaching the team and saying, actually, you know, right now you're kind of having your cake and eat it, and we're going to have to change that. We're going to have to, because a lot of people don't want to be employed. So, but you did a really good job of kind of packaging that together and making it a huge benefit for them to go from self-employed to employed. So what would your advice be to people that have got to go through that transition that you did?
I think one of the main things is that everyone is, you know, you look at the IR35 and everything that's going on in all industries at the minute. Everyone sees self-employed, especially as in our industry, as a tax avoidance, basically. So they, you know, it is going to catch up on us, and you just have to bite the bullet. As Jessica just said, I think it's all about communication as well. When you're communicating it back to the team, be clear. You know, don't try and fob them off with answers. If you don't know the answer, take your time, go and get the information that you need, but it's all about how you present it back to them. Obviously, you know, I don't understand why someone wouldn't want to be employed, if I'm honest. All the perks that they get, but yes, it's all about communication. That's definitely an important part.
Perfect. In that time, what do you think was the biggest thing that you learned? What would you have done differently? What would you not do again? And what went well, what didn't go well?
I definitely tried to sell it to them too much. And one of the notes that I've got down here is it's human nature to negotiate. They will negotiate with you, so don't go in with your highest offer. And also have the confidence as well. Though, as business owners, we offer so much, and just remind yourself of that before you have any conversations, because you do provide so much security for them. You know, not just with all the bonuses when it comes to like sorting their tax and everything. They've got the holiday pay, they've got that sickness, they've got the maternity. They've got everything basically when it comes to job security. So remind yourself of that when you go into those conversations. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you, Natalie. Anything else that you had on your notes that you wanted to share from your experience?
Not that I can see on my notes, no, but if I have anything, I'll try not to interrupt.
Perfect, throw it in the comments. But I think it's really good for you to tell your story, because when you first started working with me, one of your goals was for you to be in the salon less, for you to have that kind of that brand control over your business. And obviously now, like Natalie's like 37 weeks pregnant, like ready to have a baby at any minute. And that was kind of like when we first started, you were like, I can never see that can happen, because it wasn't, because of the self-employed, and we didn't have the systems and the processes, but those self-employed wouldn't have had to have followed the systems and processes. They could have kind of almost done what they wanted in your business. And now it's,
yeah, exactly that.
You have that control over your staff.
Yeah, and I think as well, just for anyone that is worrying about that change, I'm with you on that. I literally had sleepless nights for months and months about it. Not one single person left the business. And they're all still there now, so there's the positive for you. They're a year and a half in, and all enjoy the fact that they get their holiday, and you know, one of them's gone off on maternity leave and actually can have a maternity leave, so that's the perks for them. My one thing that I really cannot stress enough is sit down with your accountant and make sure that you know, when it comes to PAYE, when it comes to VAT, when it comes to pensions, like there is so many costs when it comes to employing people. Just make sure you get them into your numbers.
Yeah, definitely. And what about you managing it? How was it managing it before, when they were 50-50 self-employed and employed, and managing it now that they're all employed?
Sorry, Jessica, you cracked up a bit. What was that?
So for you managing
what was that last bit? Sorry, Jessica.
So for you managing the business, what difference has it made from before, when they were 50-50 self-employed and employed, and now to them being employed?
It's just allowed us to implement so much more structure. So we have a management process now. So it's not just structure for the stylists and therapists, apprentices, receptionists. It's the structure comes when it's implemented within the managers. The managers can actually manage now, which is great, especially when you're in my situation where I am going to be taking a step back from the business.
Yeah, I know. I bet you feel in a very different place now to when they were 50-50 with managing them.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Thanks, Natalie. If you want to add anything else, just throw it in the comments and we can circle back round to you.
Yeah, perfect.
Perfect. So I'm going to head over to Lisa. So Lisa is salon owner and a client, and she has an accounting background. So Lisa is going to shed a little bit more light on the legalities of self-employed. So please introduce yourself, Lisa, and tell us a little bit more about you.
Okay, so I'm Lisa, and I have a salon which we started about 7 years ago. Right from the beginning, we employed our staff, and the reason for that was because we didn't want to get into the self-employed, lack of control. We wanted to make sure our branding was right. We wanted to make sure that we had in control over our employees. So consciously, we stepped into actually employing our staff as opposed to self-employed. We've also got a recruitment consultancy, so we have contractors and that we have out on client sites. So we had an understanding of what it meant to have contractors and controlling them, etc. So that was a decision that we made up front. I know a bit about IR35. Because of the consultancy and because of this. It all depends on the amount of employees that you've got. So Natalie, I don't know how many employees that you have, but IR35 is only applicable if you've got more than 50 employees. You've got a balance sheet value of over 5.1 million, and you have a turnover of, what was it, 10.5. Yeah, so it's not applicable for a lot of salons, whether or not it's hair or beauty, within the industry. But the implications of contractors or self-employed really is something that needs to be addressed within the industry, because I have a lot of employees that are deemed to be disguised employees, and I think we could probably put our hands up and say, yeah, we recognise that. There are rules that you need to follow to determine whether or not that person is actually employed by the business, and that comes down to the amount of control that you have over that person, or the amount of freedom that that person has. So if you have people deemed as self-employed, and you're dictating their hours, you are providing products, you're taking payments for them, then under HMRC's rules, then you're deemed to be employing that person, or technically they are a disguised employee. So the IR35, I have to admit, out there, even within recruitment, there is a lot of misunderstandings as to what the rules mean, because a lot of people will say that HMRC's rules aren't particularly clear anyhow. So I'd strongly urge anybody who thinks that they're in that situation, go and get some help from your accountant, check with HMRC, use the planner and that they have online. They have a calculator tool. Use that to determine. I think you'll be quite surprised. We did this activity with our recruitment consultants, and we got them to take contractors, run them through the system and see whether or not they would be employed or self-employed under the IR35 rules, and it was quite surprising. But regardless of IR35, if you have somebody that's self-employed, you have to make sure that you're following the rules. Implications of not following the rules could be that you find out further on down the line that HMRC comes after you for their tax and national insurance contributions, because at the end of the day, HMRC want to collect their taxes, and they don't want anybody avoiding tax. And unfortunately, if you don't have a robust contract in place, and you don't actually perform or get that employee to perform as a self-employee as opposed to an employee, then you could end up paying for their tax if they don't pay for it themselves, or you could be paying for a shortfall. So it's quite scary, really. I definitely urge you to take advice on it. There's so many mixed informations out there. National Hair Federation's guideline is that a lot of businesses in our industry won't fall under IR35. So unless you've got a lot of employees, and I would say it's probably people who are in groups, then it may not be applicable, but check out your self-employed.
Perfect. And as a salon owner for you, Lisa, what's your thoughts on having self-employed in your business?
Well, I've had I have a lady who comes in to do Botox and fillers, and right from the beginning everything is clear. We have a contract with her, so it's, if we had to show HMRC and say this person's not employed by us, she invoices me for the amount of time that she spent in the salon. So I mean, I invoice her to say, you know, this is the amount of time that you've had, and this is, as per our agreement, this is what you owe. We're VAT registered, so we have to charge VAT on that as well. So it does add to the cost for that that particular lady that comes into us. But she takes her own payments, she makes her own bookings, she does her own promotion of herself. We don't get involved in any way. We will put leaflets out in the salon, but we don't promote her in any way. And if you are self-employed, you should be promoting your own work. Your clients are owned by you, you're then not owned by the clients, so that opens up masses of problems if you have a contractor leave you. You know, those clients can go with that contractor or that self-employed person. So, you know, we're careful what we do when we have those very limited incidences of self-employed contractors coming in.
And because that self-employed person can, if you know, if I was self-employed for you, Lisa, and I was sick, I could ring my friend Jem and say, can you go and do my column of clients at least?
Yeah. So you know, it's one of the rules, one of the acid test rules for HMRC is whether or not substitute. You can substitute that person. Say, I'm not coming in today, and I'm going to send my friend. Sorry, I've got to get my light back on. I'm in an office today. Yeah, so you can substitute another person to go and do your work, which we all know isn't practical. If you've got a column full of clients, they book with the therapist or the stylist. They don't actually book with the salon as such. So, you know, I don't think that would go down very well with your clients. So, you know, lack of control with self-employed. So, yeah, they cost more. They cost more to look after. But at the end of the day, you've got much more control about it, and you just cost that into your services.
Yeah, I think for me, that's one of the biggest things that I see with clients when they come onto the program and they work out that those self-employed are not actually making them any money, and then it's a big scary jump to make them all employed, and obviously they're not really following that. They are, you know, disguised employees, as we say. Anything else that you wanted to add onto that at the moment?
Just to say that the National Hair and Beauty Federation have got some good contracts on there, and their contracts, they're saying, are very robust. If you do continue down the self-employed route, and even their employment contracts are pretty robust. But I say employed all the way. Much easier, control, discipline, standards, training. You're all singing from the same song sheet. And you won't have the tax man chasing after you a bit further on down the line.
Yeah, because I mean, that's one of the other reasons that I wanted to have this discussion, because I think that everybody needs to start thinking about it and thinking about all the pros and cons of both business structures. And one of my friends, she works in property tax, finance, wealth management, and she said, you know, the hair and beauty industry, HMRC, is so excited about our industry at the moment, because they're like, if we can't identify that that person is self-employed, they're an employee in disguise. So they are like, literally, they're so excited about our industry at the moment.
Difficult times are coming as well. You know, with Brexit, they're going to be looking to gather the taxes up, and our industry, they're definitely coming for us, I think. I don't know if anybody else is a member of the National Hair and Beauty Federation, but there's been a few surveys out, and they're asking the questions, and it's also going to help as well, where the employment status of people in some of these more sweatshop type of nail salons and that sort of thing. So the playing field is changing. It's a very changing climate at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. If anyone has got any questions, please do put them in the chat, and we can loop round to those questions if you've got questions for anybody in particular.
I've also put together a fact sheet as well, which I'll put up afterwards. So a few useful links, the things that you can go and check. But, you know, from my experiences, everybody is so confused about IR35. Even some of these top recruitment consultancies are just, they don't know the rules. They think it's not going to affect them, and whilst we're small, a lot of small businesses in our industry, it's going to apply to some of the people. So
yeah, and the employee in disguise still definitely
oh yes,
and I think that's more prominent than anything in our industry, to definitely kind of make sure that you're doing everything right in that area. So thank you, Lisa.
That's right.
So Collette, please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about you. And I know this is a subject that you're really passionate
about. Okay, my name's Collette. Hello, Lisa. Hello, Natalie.
Hello.
Similar to Lisa, well, I'm an ACCA. I've spent 24 years in corporate finance at director level, etc. Retrained to be a hairdresser at 40 because I always wanted to be one. Opened a salon. Now I've quite big salons, and as Lisa, employed all the way. There's two areas to this, because firstly, the thing that everybody's throwing around at the moment is IR35. Now, in accounting practice, I had a lot of experience with IR35 in public sector, which it was originally kind of legislation was originally derived for. And it was to stop people kind of going in, being a contractor, having a limited company, and as Lisa will know, paying 10% on dividends rather than paying the full employee you know, tax, etc. Now, then what happened was, I don't know if anybody's heard of something, but without going through too much detail, there was something called the Taylor Review, which was Modern Working Practices, which was actually commissioned by the government in 2010. Okay, this goes way back. And this was all about kind of, you know, how the kind of impact was, and they were looking at poverty, they were looking at how people can work more flexibly. And what they discovered was, as Lisa said, there's too many grey areas. Now, most accounting bodies, you know, I'm a member of ACCA, you know, and most people that I've worked with in Deloitte, PwC, KPMG, or the Big Four, everybody who's an accountant will say, well, come on, guys, we need definitive rules. You know, we can't have grey areas in this area. It's got to be one rule for all. So that's what they're actually looking to do. So I was quite fortunate to actually have a meeting with Mr. Hammond last year at the, or not last year, before the Conservative Party conference. You are correct, without going into too much detail. HMRC have a huge task team to deal with our industry. Okay, and they've set aside a budget to deal with this tax team, to pay them to actually hit us and to hit the service industry for pubs and stuff like that. Okay. So what happened in 2010 is the Taylor Review happened. Then in 2016, the law changed. So this has been around since 2016. It's just that everybody's only just noticed because of IR35. Employment testing has been around since 2016. So as an owner of a business, the legalities are quite clear. And I'm sure that Lisa will know what I mean by this. If you rent a chair, you are a landlord. That is it, a landlord. You have no jurisdiction, no control, nothing. So it's almost like saying to you, I'm your landlord, you pay me rent, and then I'm going to come in every day and tell you how to do this. I'm going to hold all your records. I'm going to do this, do this, do this. It doesn't work like that. So if you rent chairs, you are a landlord. If you're self-employed on any commission basis, that is deemed as classification of straight employment from HMRC's directive. Okay. Now, with IR35, as Lisa said, and quite rightly, that it's, you know, 50 employees, £10.2 million turnover, etc. However, if you are classed or a classification and you actually tested against the criteria and are deemed to have hidden employees, or, you know, kind of, you know, as we all know, that is pretty much the standard practice out there. Let's not shy away from this. A lot of people do this, and that can be, Jessica, you're in at 9 o'clock tomorrow, aren't you? Right, you're now an employee. Jessica, I've got a client for you. It's our database. You're now an employee. So there's so much criteria, as Lisa knows, and it's incredibly difficult to actually make that work in any business. So people have to make a distinct decision on this and which one they're going to be, a landlord or a business owner. If you're going to be a landlord, remove yourself from the premises and actually, that's it. It's almost like putting grids in your salon and you rent out space and that's it, done. Not to frighten anybody, but I've got a salon 3 miles up the road who've just been pulled. £209,000 penalty and £138,000, sorry, £209,000 back tax and £138,000 penalty. Okay, so they didn't go the full 100%, Lisa, but they gave them a good slap on the chin, you know what I mean? So they are doing it, and they've been doing it since 2016, okay? How can people actually, you know, I suppose protect themselves against this, you know, prepare for the future and everything else? Because as Lisa knows, you can read through all the HMRC criteria, and believe me, it's so contradictory. You know, isn't it? It's like, you know, there's no central payment. And the other thing is, there's GDPR. You cannot hold, if you are a person in your own right, if the four of us here, if I was the landlord and you three were self-employed, I can't hold your client data. That goes against GDPR. You've got to be individually licensed. I can't hold that. I've got to have my own health and safety. I've got to have my own insurance. I've got to have my own, I can appoint anybody I want. I can bring an apprentice, my own keys. I've got to have absolutely everything, okay? And that's the difficulty, because I don't think people really see that the smaller things that they're doing in order to do the best for their business are the things that are going to trip them over. And I don't think that's intentional. I just think it's because, let's be honest, people have made hay while the sun shone. It's not shining very much anymore. So, and Lisa's quite right, with Brexit, we're going to have tests on employee skills. The Home Office have just said that hairdressing and skills like that will not reach enough points to actually gain, you know, work permits in the UK. So anybody who's employing any foreign, you know, any Europeans will have issues with that. And quite rightly, you know, they did a test in 2012 in Ireland, and it was the actual IDA, and they went after salons, and they recovered 4.2 billion euro, well, I think euros then. So they recovered a lot of money. And then obviously HMRC in the UK were like, wow, this is really attractive. This is what we need. And quite rightly, in the nicest possible way, most people are compliant. But as Lisa will probably know, if she reads any of the directives from, you know, HM Treasury and from the accountancy bureaus, is that they only deem 12% compliant with tax. And in all fairness, the reason I'm passionate about it is because they still want to visit the hospital, they still want the kids to be educated, they still want all these things doing, but if we're all starving the pot of what goes into the Treasury, then that's why our services are dwindling, and we have to take responsibility and ownership for that. That's my belief. But I think it's people like us who can, you know, I'm more than willing to help any salon that needs to look at kind of, you know, the legalities of how they make this work or anything else, because, you know, we pin down every detail. I work internationally as well, because in America they have kind of a similar system. They've gone through the pain barrier, come out the other side, and they're just going through it again. So they've kind of gone through all this, and that's why they started doing booth rent, where you were literally in a booth, like a telephone booth, because that's the only way they could demark the premises, was to actually make it like that. And unless we go down that road, I think we're going to be very pushed to try and get anybody self-employed in a building. It's going to be very difficult, very difficult.
And so that's from like a legality. And for you as a business, Collette, like, do you have all employed? How do you think how do you manage to kind of challenge that? Do you have people that approach you that want to be self-employed in your business?
To be honest, I mean, nobody's mentioned something else that I think is quite important. We talk about the financials, and as an accountant, I qualified in 1994, so I'm a bit old. But you know, the cultural benefits here as well. So do I have people approach me? If anybody approaches me and says, I want to be self-employed, I go to the door there, go and use it. If people want to do that and they're not getting what they want from our business, then they do need to look elsewhere. You know, which is a hard thing to say. However, I believe that if you develop a culture that is so good, and my belief is if you treat people so well and train them so well, they won't want to go anywhere else, because self-employment is a lonely place, a very lonely place. People don't think it is, but it is. You know, I was a contractor in accountancy and business consultancy for, I don't know, 10 years, traveling everywhere, you know, working for Eon, working for Boots, working for, you know, big companies like that, you know, and you're not part of a team. But the thing is as well, as soon as HMRC look through the window, and HMRC do go out and they do actually send people out for the blow dries, people out for the cuts and blow dries, and they do what's called sampling in salons and businesses. So they'll go and count how many heads, see how many people have come in the building at that hour, and estimate your turnover. They also have, and this is really important, I know that obviously all databases are shared with government bodies, including Groupon and everything. They have to be, including supplies, as you probably know, Jessica. They all have to be centrally shared. But as far as our business is concerned, we don't. Put it this way, we've got 44 employees. I've had, out of 44, I had 2 employees who wanted to go and earn cash in hand. So I said, good luck, off you go. Off you go and earn cash in hand. And ironically, 12 months later, I know they're now going to have an issue. So, yeah. You know, but that's their choice as adults. But I think, again, you know, my thing is, you know, we all come into business. My difference was, and you talk about brand as well, because the difference for me was, I'll be honest with you, I'm an accountant. I didn't come into business, this salon industry, to earn loads of money, because let's be honest, there isn't any. Let's be completely honest about this. The margins are short. We're not in the 60s and 70s anymore. It doesn't work like that. I came in because I lost my mum to cancer and I had a bad experience in a salon, and I wanted to do something different. So, you know, mine's kind of from the heart. However, you know, I think brand identity is everything. And the other thing people don't seem to kind of grasp, which is one of the most easiest things to prove on a sample, as you probably know, Lisa, I'm ringing up your salon. So my salon's called Heaven. I'm ringing up Heaven. I go, Heaven, can I book in with Jessica? Yeah, of course you can. Jessica's nothing to do with Heaven. Jessica's Jessica Crane Hairdressing. You know, I can't take bookings for you. And this is where it falls down straight away. You know, so there's so many different areas. But as far as the business is, answering your question, Jessica, coming back to that, 2 people in the whole time. And do you know what? It was quite weird, because these were 2 toxic individuals that we actually wanted to leave. but we couldn't find a way. And then, because obviously employees were heavily protected, but then obviously it happened naturally, which was great, and our business is just thriving. It's been brilliant. Would I ever self-employ? I'd close the doors first.
Yeah.
That I wouldn't have a business, because I think it's, the other thing is as well, and I don't think anybody ever looks at this when I talk about culture. Look, I've come into an industry from corporate finance. I know your background a bit, Lisa, but the thing is, when you come into this with a fresh pair of eyes, which I'm sure Lisa did, you come in and you go, wow, what's going on? How can you get away with this? If I talk to people like that in a director role of, you know, whatever company, I'd get shot. I'd be in a boardroom and get, like, you know, slaughtered. So there's almost kind of no protection around employees, and the people talk in our industry about devaluing our industry, but we're doing it to ourselves by letting this continue. So, you know, if we're going to, let's say, you know, they're on about the licensing is coming in as well, obviously, that's coming in soon. So that's going to make a massive impact as well. But I think, you know, if you put all these component parts together and look at it on a broader scale, with what Lisa was saying and everything else, I think salon owners need to sit up, because at the end of the day, there's only one person who will have to be and is accountable for that business, and that is you. It is not my accountant told me, because your accountant can only advise you. It is not NHF have given me a contract, because if you don't follow it to the letter, you're outside of it. So I always do this. I always prepare for war. So every single contract I write, every single thing I do is prepares for the worst case scenario. As accountants, we're trained to do that a little bit, aren't we?
Yeah.
For that. So the thing is, you know, then I know that we're sorted. And within our culture, we offer our employees, like I said, coming back to what your question was, we offer it such an amazing packaging environment to work in. Why would they want to work anywhere else?
Yeah, I think is that, isn't it? It's building your brand, building your being a leader in your business that those people are going to want to follow and want to be a part of it. And like you say, the businesses so, you know, those, I don't think the ones that aren't doing it correctly are not doing it maliciously incorrectly. I think they're not educating themselves on changes in legislation and all of these things. And I think as well, I know a lot of my clients, they're kind of in fear of losing those self-employed or employees by not giving them what they want, and having to be a lot more flexible. So they're scared that they're going to lose them, which in turn they think they're going to lose the clients and so on. So, and that's why I think it was really important to hear Natalie's story, that she went through that whole process and it was really successful for her. And it is just kind of a very scary time for a lot of salons.
Yeah, I think personally, I just want to say, I think Natalie's incredibly, huge respect to you. You know, to actually get this done and actually grab it by the balls, frankly, and get on with it. I mean, you know, that's testament to anybody, isn't it? But you're right, though, Jessica, because the thing is, look, people don't do this. Look, let's be honest. I don't mean a horrible way. You know, I trained to be a hairdresser. Am I the best hairdresser? No. Do I work on column? No. I don't run my business from behind a chair. It's impossible. That's probably something you teach. Yeah. You know, well, I can't do that. Yeah. But anyway, the point is, you know, these are people that are so highly skilled and creative and amazing. And they've never studied legislation. They didn't do 3-4 years at university on, you know, in law and accountancy and stuff like most of us have, well, my industry have. So, you know, they're not going to understand that. But what we need to do is make sure that, you know, kind of people like us in this industry, like yourself, Jessica, actually help them and guide them through that so that they don't come unstuck, you know, because, you know, I just think we have to kind of all get together and act as one industry to help each other. You know, nobody's saying for one moment people do this out of ignorance, you know, because they know, because they don't. It's the same as when you put a colour on a hair, isn't it? What tone are you going to put on? You don't know till you lifted the hair, do you really? Same thing. It's no different. But we just got to kind of, you know, prepare for it, I think. Because they will roll IR35 out to lower as well, and they will bring disguised employees into IR35 because there's no definition of self-employed out there yet.
Yeah. And I think that's why, for me, that's why I wanted to start this conversation, is because by me talking to you and Lisa and Natalie, and you're just kind of widening your perspective, you're learning from other people. Maybe for other salon owners listening, it's giving you that confidence to go through that process, or to reach out to somebody, or to start a conversation in the comments, to ask questions and get a bit of clarification. In that, we can all help each other and support each other, and by asking questions, you're going to kind of get that help and support a little bit more as well. And obviously people can, so I think the call to action today really is for people to make sure that they go away and that they look into these legalities. I know Lisa's going to give us some links and stuff which we can pop in the comments below for people to kind of go off and have a look. People, you know, can reach out to me if they want to go talk through the finances, if they feel they're not in a profitable situation because of how they've set up this agreement, like with the percentages, or their rent-a-chair, maybe they haven't set it up to be profitable. I know that obviously you guys can come back into the comments and help people on the legality side with your background. And I just want to say a massive thank you to you guys, for Natalie to share your story, and hopefully that gives somebody else the confidence to go through that process.
And I think that's what's clear, is like hindsight's a wonderful thing for me. My background is obviously completely different to Lisa and Colette's, who have both sat and said, you know, hands up, employed all the way from day one. Again, hindsight's a wonderful thing, and if I could do it all again, I would definitely start off with employment. I know that there's going to be a hell of a lot of people sat on this call who are in the position that I was 2 years ago, where you are losing sleepless nights thinking you're going to lose half of your team, etc. It is, like I said before, it has taken me a good 1.5 years to catch up with it, and to, you know, it's cost a lot of money for everybody to go employed, but obviously we're in a lot better place now, and not losing sleepless nights over expecting HMRC to come knocking on my door.
Can I just add one note there, because I think what's really important is people that are actually looking at this and listening will go, well, do you know what, I'm just going to run to my accountant and ask them, and at least we'll know what I mean by this. Accountants are there to obviously keep score and kind of register your taxes and whatever else, but these guys don't know how your business operates. When you turn around to them and say they're self-employed, they believe as an accountant that you're doing everything right.
Yeah.
Okay. They're not there to test if your business works. That test comes when you're pulled. Is that right, Lisa? It doesn't come when the accountant doesn't come in and actually test your business. But perhaps one of the things that we could probably look at doing in the future is actually somebody going into a business going, guys, let's see where we need to tidy this up for you, help you through it. And that's probably one thing. Because I just think that's where I've seen that, because I've used to be an auditor as well, so I've seen where people fall over. You know, it's very...
Yeah, I definitely see that, well, because obviously we do a lot of discovery calls with clients every week, and they're kind of obviously telling us the situation they're in, and a lot have had accountants' advice that they have then followed, and then been penalised by HMRC for following that advice. And that's something that I always say to clients is, you know, your accountant isn't there to run your business. Your accountant isn't there. Your accountant is there to file your accounts and kind of all of that bit, but they're not there to give you business advice, because they're not industry specific. They're not looking at, you know, all these grey areas and all of the kind of complexity of your business. They're looking at the numbers and if they go in the right box.
Correct, yeah.
And I think that's where people unfortunately have an unrealistic expectation of their accountant.
Yeah, they do, really. And I think it's unfair because, you know, I've worked in many industries and I've been in this one now for 9 years. And do you know what? I've worked in retail, I've worked in power, I've worked in pharmaceutical. But I've come to this industry and I'm like, wow. It's almost like, you know, it's almost like pinning a tail on a donkey, you know. So as I said, accountants, if I said to my accountant, if somebody came to me and said, collect these self-employed, these are my figures, I go, okay, you've done that test because the onus is actually on the salon owner, not the accountant.
Yeah. And I think that's the other thing that a lot of them don't understand is when you get your annual accounts, you're signing to say that that's your responsibility.
VAT. And that's the other thing as well. There's a massive thing with VAT. Sorry to throw this one in. I also know the salon who, let's be honest, this is kind of, accountants used to give out some advice because there's always been, as Lisa knows, there's always been little holes in you know, legislation that allow people to get through a little hole, and you know what's just legal. However, you cannot separate a business from one premise to the other and actually say the different businesses to avoid avoid VAT. If at any point you say how do I stay under the threshold?
Yes.
Do not put that on social media. What are you doing? Don't tell anybody you're trying to stay on the threshold, because that in itself is a criminal offence, you know, or could be deemed as criminal if they come in and audit you. But the point I'm making is, because I've spoken to many, my accountant said I could do that. I don't think so, because I don't think you really told him how you operate, did you? So, you know, we're not just talking about, as Lisa knows, we're not just talking about HMRC with regards to pay as you earn and everything. VAT is a massive part of this, and that's the one that usually finishes business. Yeah. Just coming back to the legal side, then you can knock me out. People will say, well, the law says this, the law says that, the law says the other. Now, what happens is, obviously, you know, as you all know, law goes through the kind of House of Lords and it's passed as legislation. Then what happens is, when you get into a court of law, the law is tested on cited test cases. Okay, so this is where it all went. You've got no chance, because you've all heard of Deliveroo, you've all heard of Uber. These people have never met their employer, own their own vehicles, but yet guess what? The class is employed because it's all where to go. The biggest test case was Pimlico Plumbers. Okay, and that was a plumber who was self-employed, had a heart attack, wanted his sick pay, took them to court, got awarded loads of money. And there was actually a test case in our industry 3 years ago. Okay, it's not gone out anywhere in the media because we're not deemed as a big thing, because we didn't go to the High Court. There was a girl who was self-employed. Now, just bear this in mind, salon owners, please. This girl was self-employed for 7 years with this salon. She got pregnant, and she decided that, well, she actually applied for maternity pay and couldn't get it because she hadn't paid a stamp for class 2s or class 4s. So she couldn't get maternity pay. So she decided she wanted to go after the employer to get it. And guess what? She won. She proved she was self-employed. She owed HMRC 7 years worth of tax and NI. She sued the salon successfully and then paid HMRC back.
Yeah, I'd believe it.
Salon and it's actually public record, so if you want to find it, you can find it. But that was quite, for me, that was quite telling. So, you know, that's a massive, you know, and she proved she was self-employed by saying she didn't have a set of keys. That was it. She couldn't come and go as she pleased. That was it. So reading the transcript is really, sorry, I'm really sad I read a lot of this stuff, but you know, it's worth looking at that, because people think that they've got no comeback with self-employed either. But if legislation does go that way, anybody you're self-employed now has got a case against you in the future potentially.
Yeah. And circling back round to when you said about under the VAT threshold, that's something that we see a lot, that salons, they've got 2 salons that they're trying to keep under. They're the same brand, the same shareholders, the same, that is the same business.
It's association, as soon as you've got, can't do it.
Yeah, and you know, we had one who had one side as a barber's and one side as a salon. Again, you know, they actually did get penalised by HMRC, but I think it's great to have these conversations. I think it's great to thrash these things out to make people aware, so that they can then you know, educate themselves on these topics and make sure that they're not doing that, so that we can grow the industry and help each other on the business side. I think it's something everybody wants to focus on, the creative, and I get that, it's a lot more fun. But at the end of the day, we're not going to be doing any creative if we don't have a business.
Correct, yeah.
So anything else that anybody else wants to ask? So Lisa, I think in your comments, value your staff and get quality and loyalty. We offer private medical care for our staff as part of the package to stand out from the rest. Yeah, brilliant. Anything else before we finish up? Has anyone got anything else that they want to add?
I'd just like to thank you all for your time, and lovely to speak to you all. And I'd like to touch base with you, Lisa, and know more about your contracting stuff.
Yeah.
So it might be good for you to have a chat at some point, because I think that's really interesting.
Perfect. Well, we're going to upload this. I'm going to put it on my socials, and I'm going to also upload it to the Hair UK Have Your Say Facebook group, so we can all I'll try and tag you all if I can onto this video as well, so we can kind of help anybody in the comments afterwards as well. But a massive thank you for you all joining, and Colette and Lisa and Natalie for all of your input. So thank you all very much, and I will speak to you all soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.